feel so sick right now.
Unfortunately, you've been diagnosed with the Black Plague.
Isn't that disease from like ages ago?
Yeah, it's from the 1300s, but it's still around today.
Ugh. Well, I know I feel so awful right now. I wish this disease never existed.
Wow, what an interesting theory. That's definitely something to think about. Well, here's your medicine. Make sure to take it once in the morning and once at night.
Ah! Who are you?
Actually, if the plague never happened, modern medicine would be much weaker. Because of the many dead bodies from the plague, there are many available cadavers. Scientists studied the cadavers' human anatomy to improve medicine. Also, because of the declining belief in religion, medicine shifted from being spiritual focus to a logical focus. This meaning that medicine relied more on scientific studies rather than religious rituals.
That's interesting, but who are you? That was weird. Whatever, I have to go. Oh wow, I love this painting. I love how detailed the person is.
Fun fact. If the Black Plague never happened, humanism wouldn't have happened. Humanism is secularization that was shown in art, in people's mindsets. Human bodies were shown more detailed in art because art didn't have a complete focus on religion any longer. Also, the advancement of knowledge of human anatomy that we talked about earlier allowed artists to paint humans more accurately.
Wow. So I guess she's saying that the Black Death is the reason why this painting could have been created. Huh, that's interesting. Oh my gosh, I have to go! Wow, look at all these cleaning supplies.
Because of the bubonic plague, sanitation and overall quality of life improved. People realized that poor sanitation was spreading the plague, so sanitations in cities improved. Also, peasants got better wages and freedom, so their quality of life improved. Not only this, but because of the massive amount of death, people learned to appreciate the life that they had while they had it.
Goodbye. Here I am at my next appointment. Oh my gosh, there are so many people in this waiting room.
If the Black Death never happened, the world would be very overcrowded. Over 20 million people died from it. Imagine if all those people didn't die and kept multiplying as they had kids. The world population would have reached carrying capacity and would not have enough resources to provide for everyone. Also, the increased amount of people would have increased carbon emissions, which would further advance global warming. Not only this, but deforestation would have increased to provide housing and farmland for the extra population.
I'm really hungry, but those little bites are so expensive. I wish my job at Harris Teeter paid more.
Before the plague happened, Europe used feudal system, where peasants were paid even less than you are at Harris Teeter. But because of the Black Death and the decreasing peasant class, peasants were able to revolt, and bam, the peasant class is no longer. If the bubonic plague never happened, the feudal system could have continued, and you might be a peasant today. Then you most definitely couldn't afford those little bites.
Wow, this art is so optimistic and positive. It's like no one has ever expressed their sadness or gloominess through art.
Actually, Europe was just about to emerge into a more enlightened era after suffering through the Dark Ages when the Black Plague hit it. It was the Black Plague that brought about dark and gloomy art where people channeled the mass suffering into depictions of hell, tortured souls, and death and the Grim Reaper. If the Black Death hadn't happened at all, we would be lacking a major source of art with darker themes. We might even have a little less religious art, because a lot of art relating to God was patronized during the plague, because people wanted God to be glorified so that he would stop the sickness, and because people were afraid of what would happen. This kind of art wasn't constantly supported.
Wow, I would be scared too. Oh, Europe. I wonder what life would be like if Europe didn't look like this.
Actually, it almost didn't. Remember the Mongols? Those fierce conquerors in Europe who were the exception to everything? Yeah, led by Kublai Khan, my favorite person ever. For part of the existence, the Black Death is largely to blame for their fall, and without it ever happening, their strong conquest would have continued, and they could have taken probably half of Europe. The Europeans did not have the economic resources or the proper amount of people to fight off the invasion after dealing with the Crusades, let alone an invasion as powerful and awesome as the Mongols.
Those exceptional Mongols, of course they would practically conquer the whole world. That's interesting. This coffee table book estimates that there are about 13 to 14 million Jews in the world.
Did you know that there would probably be more Jews in the world had the Black Plague not happened? The persecution of Jews spread all over Europe during the Black Plague because many people accused the Jews of causing the sickness by deliberately poisoning wells. They used followers of the faith as a scapegoat because they so desperately wanted a reason why this was happening to them. And in the result, thousands of Jewish people were brutally murdered in a string of massacres. So, many lives would have been saved if the Black Plague never happened. And it also wouldn't have left behind lingering discrimination that caused more massacres against Jews in the future.
And apply for the job.
Ooh! Western Europe and its labor systems would be a lot different had the Black Plague not happened. Had the plague not happened at all, the demand for labor would most likely have not risen at all in Europe, like it did when so many workers died. So workers would not have been able to negotiate higher wages and more power. Basically, if the workforce stayed abundant, then the serf system would have remained as strong as ever. And who knows when it would have fallen.
Yikes. I'm glad that Black Plague helped wipe out the serf system then. For me to go to church.
I'm back for the last time. Because you need to know that in a time when everyone wanted answers and used the Catholic Church to guide their lives, priests and religious figures could not offer much in this situation. Such a cure or simply even an explanation. In the result, the Catholic Church lost much of its influence and its authority, which would have been maintained if the Black Death had not have happened. The Church also started going against its own teachings as they allowed burials in mass graves. Most of the clergy fled their posts, and the church began charging money for some of their services, gaining money in a time when everyone else was suffering. All these things dragged down the church's reputation and influence in the Black Plague, but it would have been strong otherwise.
Wow, I've learned a lot about the bubonic plague today since I was followed around by a person wearing a red jacket who I still don't know who it was. Even though it's really awful to have the Black Plague, I'm glad that it happened and that it was an epidemic in history, because now I know that if it didn't happen, a lot of other things would be negatively impacted as a result. Oh, ow, that hurt.
Unfortunately, you've been diagnosed with the Black Plague.
Why are you saying diagnose?
Okay.
Quick,
Unfortunately.
your one scene.
No, I don't want to have to edit this scene. Oh wait.